Recent reports from Bloomberg claim Vladimir Putin wants to conclude this war on victorious terms by year's end, specifically securing the Donbas region. The immediate reaction has been confusion among analysts who see battlefield stagnation as proof of Russian failure rather than strategic success. You are watching a headline that suggests Moscow is pivoting toward victory, while data points suggest they might be accepting defeat in all but name. This discrepancy between the narrative and reality creates genuine uncertainty about what happens next for Ukraine and the broader European security architecture over the coming 12 months. By the end of this analysis, you will understand why shifting from total conquest to a frozen conflict is not an admission of weakness, but a calculated realpolitik maneuver designed to preserve regime stability while locking in territorial gains that would otherwise be lost through prolonged attrition. To grasp what is happening on the ground, we must first discard the assumption that military progress always follows a linear trajectory toward a single endpoint. In 2025, the battlefield dynamics have shifted into something far more complex than simple advances and retreats. Recent assessments from late this year challenged the narrative of an imminent Russian victory while simultaneously supporting the idea that Moscow is redefining what success actually looks like for them. The Kremlin continues to promote rhetoric about inevitability to pressure Kyiv diplomatically, yet hard data tells a different story regarding their actual operational capacity. Specifically, expert analysis indicates that the rate of advance in Donetsk Oblast has slowed dramatically to approximately 0.12 kilometers per day. This specific figure is critical because it reveals a fundamental mismatch between political ambition and military reality at the tactical level. If we apply this daily progress rate to the remaining distance required for full control, experts project that Moscow will not achieve total command of the region until August 2027. That timeline fundamentally alters the strategic calculation from one of immediate conquest to one of long-term endurance. The absence of rapid breakthroughs suggests a deliberate choice by Russian leadership to consolidate their current footholds in Donbas and Zaporizhia, rather than risking overextension for marginal gains elsewhere. This creates a defensive buffer zone that serves as a permanent leverage point without requiring the regime to sustain the catastrophic costs associated with a total war strategy. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. Here is where we must apply an engineering mindset to understand the geopolitical logic at play. The shift from pursuing total victory toward managing a frozen conflict mirrors a production trade-off where halting a failing deployment becomes necessary to preserve core infrastructure. In this context, the Donbas region represents that critical infrastructure for Moscow. By pivoting away from total conquest and accepting slower advance rates, they are engaging in what we might call failure mode containment. This is not a system crash. It is an intentional adjustment designed to prevent catastrophic latency caused by trying to optimize for a single endpoint that has already hit diminishing returns. Consider the Kremlin strategy as aligning with steady-state architecture patterns where degraded performance becomes acceptable if it maintains overall system uptime. The regime recognizes that over-optimizing for total victory on the battlefield carries an existential risk of collapse due to resource exhaustion and domestic unrest. By accepting a lower throughput in terms of daily territorial gains, they ensure long-term availability of their military machine without triggering the internal instability that would follow a failed offensive campaign. This is a rational response to the constraints imposed by 3 years of large-scale warfare. The narrative function of claiming victorious terms also serves as a load-balancing mechanism for domestic political pressure. The strain of attrition must be distributed across the population rather than concentrated on regime legitimacy alone. Moscow achieves this by framing any future settlement that secures parts of Donbas as a victory, effectively stabilizing back-end operations even if the front end shows signs of struggle. This allows them to maintain control while avoiding the single point of failure where public opinion turns against the war effort entirely. Prioritizing the consolidation of the Donbas region represents what we can call a sharding decision in geopolitical terms. Just as database architects isolate high-value data centers to ensure integrity even when the broader network remains unstable, Moscow is isolating this specific territory to protect it from further losses while accepting that the rest of Ukraine will remain contested and hostile. This move signals an admission that their current scaling strategy for total invasion has exhausted its utility. The pivot to a sustainable, lower bandwidth operational mode ensures long-term availability over short-term throughput, which is exactly what you would expect from leaders who have calculated the true costs of continued escalation against Western support systems. However, this interpretation faces significant complications when viewed through the lens of current military realities. Russian forces are achieving only modest gains, despite holding the initiative on many fronts, and United States military officials warn that delaying negotiations could worsen the situation for Kyiv significantly. The lack of concrete diplomatic details in available reports leaves a gap regarding specific terms of any potential settlement, requiring us to verify claims against the broader strategic reality of a grinding stalemate. While the Bloomberg report suggests a shift toward victory, the operational data indicates a transition into a prolonged period where both sides dig in rather than break through. The ultimate insight here is that this pivot represents a fundamental redefinition of war's purpose for Moscow. It is no longer about liberating every inch of Ukraine or toppling the government in Kyiv through force alone. Instead, it is about creating facts on the ground that cannot be easily reversed by diplomatic pressure or Western sanctions. By securing Donbas and establishing a frozen conflict scenario, they create a permanent strategic asset that forces future negotiations from a position of strength rather than desperation. This explains why the pace has slowed to 812 kilometers daily while rhetoric remains aggressive. The regime is not losing, it is simply changing the game entirely to match its actual capabilities and long-term objectives. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.